People will tell you that women become invisible after 50 are saw, that the world just stops noticing you once you're no longer young. And yes, that's happening. But here's the part no one says. For you, this doesn't feel new. It feels familiar. Because the truth is, you didn't suddenly become invisible at 50. You felt unseen your whole life. And now, finally, it shows on the outside.
I want you to notice that word, familiar. Because if the story were only about aging, it would feel like a shock, an insult, something arriving from outside you. And for some women, it is exactly that. But for you, there's a second feeling underneath the sting, quieter and much older, a kind of grim recognition. Oh, this again. As if a truth you'd always half believed about yourself had finally been confirmed by the world. Picture yourself in a room full of people. Somewhere along the way, you learn to read that room and go quiet, to make yourself easy, to take up no more than your share of the air, to sand down anything in you that might be too much. You got so good at it that you can stand in a crowded room and feel it close over you, as if you were never quite there. That is not a new skill. You have been practicing it since you were a girl, so long that it stopped feeling like something you do and started feeling like something you are. And it shows up in 100 small ways you've stopped even noticing. You let the sentence go because someone louder started talking. You laugh a beat late so as not to draw the eye. You stand slightly outside the circle at the party, holding your drink, ready to be useful, not quite expecting to be sought out. None of these are dramatic. That's exactly why they've been so easy to miss, and so easy to blame on yourself. Before you decide this is simply what 50 is, stay with me. There is one word that changes this whole thing, and it is not the word you're bracing for. Over the next few minutes, I'll show you where this really began, why a stranger's glance sliding past you can level you for a whole day, and how a woman who was trained to disappear begins to let herself be seen again, not by fighting for the world's attention, but by something much quieter and more within your reach. You did not imagine this, so stay with me. This is the part no one says out loud.
Let's be honest about what this really is for you, because the usual version misses it. The common story is that aging erased you, that it's about youth and beauty fading, but if you grew up emotionally unseen, this lands on a much older bruise. You already knew how to be in a room and have no one quite register that you were there. You learned that a long time ago. The world catching up to it now isn't a new wound, it's an old one, finally made visible.
You know it in the ordinary moments. The waiter takes everyone's order and glides right past you. You say something in a meeting and it lands like a stone in deep water, no ripple, until a younger voice says the same thing a minute later and suddenly it's an idea. You've started editing yourself before you even speak, bracing for the room to look straight through you. None of that is you being fragile. It's a very old reflex, doing exactly what it was built to do. Watch how many forms it takes once you start looking. At a family gathering, you're the one who knows where everything is, who remembers the allergies and the birthdays, who keeps the whole evening running, and somehow you're also the one no one turns to and really asks how you are. You've become part of the furniture of other people's comfort, present, essential, and completely unremarked. You can be the most important person in a room and still not be seen in it. Or you catch yourself in a shop where the young assistant's eyes move over you and keep going, landing on the customer just behind you, and something in your chest does a small, familiar drop, and you scold yourself for it because you know, rationally, that it's nothing, that you're being ridiculous, that a grown woman shouldn't be undone by a shopgirl's glance. But the reaction isn't coming from the grown woman. It's coming from someone much younger inside her who learned to read exactly that flicker of not quite attention and take it as a verdict. Notice, too, how much of this you've quietly arranged yourself. You dress to not be noticed, rather than to be seen. You turn down the invitation because you assume you won't really be missed. You make yourself the reliable background so no one has to accommodate you. You have, without ever deciding to, become an expert collaborator in your own disappearance. And that, strange as it sounds, is going to turn out to be good news. Because a thing you're helping to do is a thing you have some power over. But before we get there, we have to understand where the reflex came from. Because you weren't born knowing how to vanish.
Here's the thread that ties it all together. As a child, you were trained. quietly, often without anyone meaning to be cruel, to take up as little space as possible, to not need much, to not be a bother, to read the room and make yourself small enough to be easy. You became an expert at being unobtrusive because being unobtrusive felt safe. And now, the world, in its own careless way, is treating you exactly the way you were taught to treat yourself. As someone, it's fine to look past. The childhood adaptation has gone literal.
Go back to the house you grew up in for a moment. Maybe love there was busy, or rationed, or loud in the wrong ways. Maybe a parent's mood was the weather everyone watched, and your job was to never be the storm. Maybe there was a sibling whose needs filled the whole house, and you learned early that the way to be good was to need nothing in return. However it happened, you found the one reliable path to safety. Need less, want less, be less trouble. You made yourself small, and the smallness got rewarded, or at least it stopped drawing fire. And here is the cruel elegance of it. It worked. Being small kept you safe. Being easy got you a kind of love. The love that's really relief that you're not a problem. Being the one who asks for nothing made you, in that house, almost invisible in the good sense. Nothing to manage, nothing to worry about. A child cannot tell the difference between being overlooked and being safe when the two arrive together, over and over, for a whole childhood. So the two fused. To be unseen became the same thing as to be okay. And that is a devastating lesson to carry into a life, because a survival trick that saves a girl can quietly go on running a woman's whole life, long after the danger it was built for is gone. You carried it into your marriage, always the one who adjusts, who doesn't make a fuss, whose needs come last, and often not at all. You carried it into your work, the one who does the invisible labor and lets someone else take the credit, because asking to be recognized feels dangerous in a way you can't quite explain. You carried it into your mothering, pouring yourself out so completely that your children have no idea you have wants of your own, because you made sure they never had to notice. And none of that was weakness. I want to be very clear about that. Every one of those adaptations was intelligent. Each one was a small girl doing something genuinely brilliant, finding the one reliable way to stay safe and stay loved in the world she was actually handed. The tragedy isn't that you were weak. The tragedy is that you were resourceful in a situation that should never have required it. And then the resourcefulness kept charging you rent for decades after you left.
So when the waiter speaks to the younger person, when your idea is ignored and then repeated by someone else as if it's new, when you feel yourself fading out of the frame, it doesn't just sting in the present. It confirms something you've suspected since you were small, that you don't quite count, that you're here on sufferance, allowed to stay as long as you don't ask for much. That's why this can hurt so far out of proportion. It isn't only 50 talking. It's 5 and 15 and 25 all at once.
And that is the part one most need you to hear, because it's where you quietly turn the ache on yourself. That flood of hurt from one careless glance is not you being vain or dramatic. It is decades of the same small suspicion arriving together and being felt at last. You are not too sensitive. You are someone who was left for a very long time to suspect she didn't matter, and a body remembers that. Think about what that does over the years. A wound that never gets named doesn't heal. It just goes quiet, and it waits specifically for evidence. Every overlooked moment, every conversation that flows around you, every time you were the last to be asked and the first to be forgotten, a small part of you filed it away as proof, not proof you argue with, proof you simply live inside, the way you live inside your own name. So by the time you're 50 and the world's attention visibly narrows, you're not encountering a new idea. You're meeting an old one, wearing today's clothes. And then comes the second injury, the one you do to yourself. You feel the hurt, and instead of comforting the part of you that's hurting, you turn on her. You call her needy. You tell her she's making it about herself again, that other people have real problems, that wanting to be seen at your age is vanity. You do to your own pain exactly what was done to you as a child. You look past it. You become for yourself one more person in the room who won't quite meet her eyes. And so the loneliness doubles, unseen by the world, and now unseen by you too. I want you to feel how unfair that is, because the unfairness is the doorway. You are not too much. You never were. You were a child with entirely ordinary needs, to be noticed, to be delighted in, to matter to someone simply for existing, and those needs went unmet. And you concluded, as every child does, that the problem must be you. It was never you. The need was normal. What was missing was someone to meet it. And here is the quietly staggering thing about being 50. For the first time, the person who can finally meet it might be you.
But I want you to see what's actually true here, because it changes everything. You were never genuinely invisible, not as a child and not now. You were trained to disappear, you got good at it, and then you mistook the training for the truth of you. There is a difference between being unseen and making yourself unseeable, and the second one, you have some say over. The very years the world claims erased, you have quietly handed you something. You no longer have to earn your place by being small. You can take up space now, not because you finally got permission, but because you've stopped waiting for it.
Sit with that distinction, because your whole freedom is folded inside it. Unseen is something done to you. Unseeable is something you learned to do. A dimmer switch your hand has been resting on since you were a girl, turning your own light down to keep the peace. And a switch that turns down can turn up. No one has to hand you the room. You were never as gone as you were taught to believe. Let me show you what that switch actually looks like in a day. It's the moment you decide in advance that no one wants to hear your opinion, so you don't offer it. It's the outfit chosen to blend rather than to be met. It's the "oh, it's nothing" when someone almost turns toward you. Every one of those is a small hand on the dimmer, turning yourself down before the world can. You've been doing the world's overlooking for it, preemptively, your whole life, which means a great deal of your invisibility was never the world's decision at all. It was a habit of self-erasure so old you mistook it for weather. And I'm not telling you this to blame you, please hear that. You didn't choose the dimmer as an adult. It was installed in you when you were far too young to refuse it. But naming it puts your hand back on it, consciously, maybe for the first time. That's the whole shift. Not make the world see you, which you can't control, but stop doing its erasing for it, which slowly, unevenly, with a lot of old fear, you actually can. Here is what the years have genuinely given you, underneath the loss. When you were young, being overlooked felt like a matter of survival, because in some real way it once was. A child who isn't seen is a child in danger, but you are not that child anymore. You are a grown woman who can feed herself, house herself, leave a room, end a conversation, walk away from anyone who refuses to see her. The stakes that made the smallness necessary are gone. The only thing still enforcing it is a reflex, and a reflex, unlike a childhood, can be updated. You have outlived the danger the disappearing was protecting you from. That is not a small thing. That is freedom that arrived so quietly you didn't hear it come in. So here is the smallest place to start. One time today, take the space, say the sentence you'd normally swallow. Sit at the table, not at the edge of it. Let yourself be, just once, a little more than the room expected, and notice that it does not end. The girl who learned to need nothing did that to survive. She doesn't have to keep running your life at 50 and start smaller than you think you're allowed to. You don't have to walk into a room and command it. You just have to stop the automatic turning down. When someone asks what you'd like, answer honestly instead of whatever's easiest. When you have a thought, let it out of your mouth before you've talked yourself out of it. When you catch yourself apologizing for taking up a seat, a moment, a bit of someone's time, stop, mid-sentence if you have to, and let yourself simply take it. Each of these is you moving the dimmer up a single notch. No one else even has to notice. You will. And you'll feel the old fear come up every time, the certainty that you're being too much, that you'll be a bother, that the safe thing is to shrink back down. That fear is not a warning about today. It's a memory. It belongs to a little girl in a house that no longer exists, and it's allowed to be there, and it does not get the final say anymore. You can feel it. Thank it for how hard it worked to keep you safe, and take up the space anyway. Courage was never the absence of that fear. It's taking the seat while the fear insists you shouldn't. Before I let you go, If this named something you've carried since long before 50, do one small thing for me. Like this video so it reaches the next woman who's been feeling unseen and quietly deciding it's just her. Subscribe if you'd like to keep doing this gentle work together. And in the comments, if you're willing, when did you first learn to take up less space? I read every one. Then tap the bell so the next conversation finds you.
You are not disappearing. You are being asked, maybe for the first time in your life, to do the one thing you were never allowed to do as a child, to be visible on purpose, to say the thing, to take the seat, to stop shrinking yourself to match how little you were once seen. The world may have a narrow eye. Let it. You don't have to agree with it anymore. The girl who learned to need nothing and take up no space did that to survive. She doesn't have to run your life at 50. You're allowed to be seen now, and the first person who has to start seeing you fully is you.